They said she was out of his league, a millionaire mom of triplet girls, dining in a 5-star restaurant. He was a single dad, a quiet veteran just trying to survive another day. When she invited him on a date and the bill came in at nearly $900, he thought it was a joke. But what if it wasn't? What if that dinner wasn't just about food, but about testing the size of a man's heart? This isn't a love story. It's a story about kindness, second chances, and how sometimes the most expensive thing isn't the bill, it's the choice to stay. If stories like this touch something in your heart, you're in the right place. Go ahead, subscribe, and stay with us. Because what happens next just might surprise you. The waiter set down the final dessert, molten chocolate cake drizzled with raspberry coulis, and Adam Carter was certain he'd made a grave mistake. He sat stiffly at the elegantly set table, his calloused fingers resting awkwardly on the linen napkin across his lap, eyes flitting between the gleaming chandelier above and the 3 identical little girls squirming in their velvet seats. All 3 wore matching golden dresses with white lace collars and sparkly shoes that clacked against the polished floor every time they kicked under the table, which was often. Across from him sat Lydia Monroe, impeccably poised in a navy silk dress, blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon. She was every inch the high society woman Adam had spent a lifetime avoiding. She smiled over her wine glass, as if this chaos unfolding before them was perfectly normal. "Try the lobster ravioli before it gets cold," she said calmly, while one of the girls attempted to build a tower out of butter packets. Adam blinked. This was supposed to be a blind date. One dinner. Maybe polite small talk. Certainly not this. He glanced at the triplets again, Lucy, Lena, and Lily, if he remembered the names right. They had introduced themselves like a Broadway trio. Lucy was the loud one. Lena kept trying to sneak sips from his water glass, and Lily, quiet Lily, stared at him like she was trying to read his soul. He turned to Lydia, lowering his voice. "You didn't mention them." She tilted her head, amused. "Didn't I? Oversight on my part. This was supposed to be a one-on-one," he said carefully, his words measured. "And this," Lydia said, gesturing to her daughters with a gentle sweep of her hand, "is who I am. One woman, 3 shadows." Before Adam could reply, Lena knocked over a glass of pink lemonade. The liquid spread like a slow-moving disaster across the white tablecloth. Lydia didn't flinch. She simply lifted the menus out of the way and passed a napkin to Lena. "Darling, what do we say when we flood the table?" "Sorry, Mr. Adam," Lena chirped, utterly unbothered. Adam muttered something about it being fine, but inside, alarms were blaring. He wasn't made for this. He fixed things. Wood, pipes, broken fences. Not girls in golden dresses. And then the waiter returned, with the bill. The small black leather folder landed like a stone between them. Lydia reached for it with a casual grace and opened it. Adam leaned in slightly and caught a glimpse of the number. $879.32. His eyebrows shot up. He nearly choked on his breath. Lydia closed the folder slowly, then looked at him with a smile that was both serene and mischievous. "I just wanted to see your face," she said. Adam stiffened. "Excuse me." She leaned in, her voice low and warm. "You thought this was a test. And it was. But not for your wallet." She pulled out a sleek black card and handed it to the waiter without hesitation. "It's for your heart." Adam watched in disbelief as the transaction processed. The girls resumed giggling and arguing about dessert. One of them asked if she could take the rest of the creme brulee home for their nanny's cat. The table was chaos, and Lydia was calm in its center, like a general who'd long accepted that victory came not from controlling the noise, but from loving through it. Adam ran a hand down his jaw. Is this normal for you?" She smiled again, and this time there was something soft beneath the surface. If by normal you mean unconventional, loud, exhausting, and unexpectedly wonderful, then yes. He laughed despite himself. A real laugh. It slipped out of his chest like it had been waiting for years to be let go. Lydia looked at him with curiosity. "What's funny?" He shook his head, still grinning. "I was expecting a salad and small talk." "You got grilled octopus and glitter in your water." He glanced down. Lucy had indeed dropped a sequin in his glass. It twinkled back at him, unapologetic. As the girls finished their desserts, Lydia gathered her purse and stood, then crouched briefly to tie one of Lily's shoes. Adam stood as well, unsure of what to say. She turned to him before leaving, eyes searching his. "This wasn't a joke, Adam, but I understand if it's not your thing." He nodded slowly, heart thudding in a way he didn't like. "I thought it was a joke." "I know," she said gently. "Most do." There was a pause, the kind that lingers when something could be said, but might not be. Then she added, "But tonight told me more about you than any perfect, quiet date ever could." She took her girls' hands, turned, and began walking toward the exit, the triplets bouncing in unison like gold-tinted lanterns. Adam stood there, frozen. She hadn't asked for anything, hadn't flirted, hadn't pushed. She'd simply shown him who she was, and then paid the bill, literally and emotionally. The hostess passed by with a smile. "Beautiful family, huh?" Adam nodded faintly, eyes still on the door. He walked out a few minutes later into the crisp night air, his breath curling in front of him like small ghosts. As he reached his truck, he paused. There on the windshield was a small white napkin, folded once, held down by a crayon. Inside, in child's handwriting, "Dear Mr. Adam, you passed the test. Also, Lena says sorry about your water." Lily, the quiet one. Adam stared at it for a long time. He didn't move, just stood under the stars, napkin in hand, something unspoken stirring in his chest. He had walked into that restaurant thinking it was just another awkward dinner. He had no idea, absolutely no idea, that he had just stepped into the beginning of something that would change his life forever. 3 days before the dinner at Harbor and Hearth, Adam Carter sat alone at his usual corner table in the Velvet Bean, the cozy, cedar-scented cafe that had become his unofficial second home. The snow outside had just begun to fall, fine powder dusting the sidewalks of Redwood Falls, softening the edges of its brick storefronts and bare trees. Inside, the warmth of the fireplace and the low hum of Norah Jones gave the place its usual hush. Adam wasn't listening to the music, though. He was staring into a half-drunk cup of black coffee, swirling it absent-mindedly, as if the answers to his restlessness might reveal themselves in the ripples. Linda Matthews wiped her hands on a striped apron as she approached. Tall, silver-haired, and with a wit sharp enough to slice through any silence, she'd run the cafe since Adam returned from his final deployment. She knew when to press and when to let things simmer. But today she wasn't in a simmering mood. "You're doing it again," she said, sliding into the booth across from him uninvited. Adam looked up. "Doing what?" "Brooding. Stirring your coffee like it insulted your mother." He half smiled. Maybe it did. She raised an eyebrow, then leaned forward on her elbows. "So, I've got someone I want you to meet." "Nope," Adam said instantly. "Adam," she chided. "You didn't even let me finish." "Don't need to. If it starts with someone I want you to meet, I already know how it ends. With me fake laughing through an awkward dinner while silently planning my escape route." Linda rolled her eyes. "This isn't just anyone. She's different." Adam chuckled, a dry sound. "They're always different. Until they find out I spend my days building barn doors and sanding old cedar. Then suddenly, I'm not shiny enough for the showroom." Linda didn't laugh. She studied him for a long moment, the way only someone who'd watched a man come home from war and from grief could. "You're not afraid of them judging you," she said softly. "You're afraid you'll start to feel something, and then lose it again." The words landed like a low blow. Adam shifted in his seat, eyes dropping back to his coffee. He didn't deny it. "Rachel's been gone 4 years, Linda added gently. "I know exactly how long it's been," he said, his voice quiet but solid. Silence settled between them like snow. Linda reached out, placing her hand on his wrist. "You think moving on dishonors her? But staying stuck, Adam, that's not honoring her. That's disappearing in plain sight." Adam didn't answer. His mind flickered back to those final months with Rachel. The way her laughter slowly turned to silence. How he used to lie beside her in the hospital bed, counting the spaces between her breaths. The day she made him promise, "You have to keep living. You don't get to pause just because I can't press play anymore." He had nodded. He had meant it. But after she passed, everything inside him went still. The workshop became his world. The rhythm of wood against blade, dust in the air. It was predictable, manageable, unlike feelings. Linda pulled him back to the present with a single line, one that struck deeper than she knew. "You keep sitting here, night after night, staring at that same empty chair. But maybe, just maybe, out there somewhere, there's a table that's saving you a seat." Adam blinked. She stood, smoothing her apron. "Her name is Lydia Monroe. She's not perfect, but she's honest. She owns a few hotels. Don't let that scare you. What matters is, she's raising 3 girls, triplets, by herself. And she doesn't need saving, Adam. She needs someone who doesn't run." He raised an eyebrow. "Triplets? That's not a date. That's a sitcom." Linda grinned. "Exactly. And don't pretend you're not good with kids. Remember when you taught the Anderson twins to carve Pinewood Derby cars? You had glitter in your beard for a week." Adam leaned back, rubbing his temples. "I'm not the guy for this, Lynn. But you were the guy who stayed up 3 nights in a row building a ramp for a wheelchair-bound vet you barely knew. You were the guy who carried his wife into every doctor's appointment just so she didn't have to walk one more step. Don't tell me you're not the guy. You've just forgotten what it feels like to be seen again." He exhaled, long and slow. Outside, the snow kept falling. Linda patted the table. Thursday night. Harbor and hearth. 7 o'clock. Wear the blue button-down, the one that makes your eyes less tragic. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no. That night, back in his small 2-bedroom home, Adam opened the closet and stared at the neat row of shirts. His fingers paused on the blue one. Rachel used to tease him when he wore it. "You look like you're trying to impress someone. I like it." He sat on the edge of the bed, holding the shirt in his lap like a question. What was he so afraid of? That he might feel something again? That he might actually laugh without guilt? Or worse, that someone might see past the grief, past the silence, and decide he was worth loving anyway? The house creaked. The wind howled. And Adam Carter, for the first time in 4 years, let himself imagine what it might feel like to sit at a different table, with someone new across from him, and maybe, just maybe, 3 little girls who didn't care about his past, as long as he showed up for their present. Back at Harbor and Hearth, just moments before the outrageous bill arrived, Adam Carter sat upright in his leather-cushioned seat, trying his best to look composed. But nothing could have prepared him for the whirlwind that had walked in 20 minutes earlier. They arrived like a scene from a family comedy pilot. Lydia Monroe, statuesque and composed in a cream silk blouse and tailored pants, flanked by 3 pint-sized tornadoes in matching red coats and boots, each dragging their own glittery backpack and opinions. The maitre d' had barely finished saying, "Your table is ready," before one of the girls, he'd later learn it was Lena, had spun in a full circle and announced to the lobby, "This place smells expensive." Adam almost choked on the water he'd just sipped. Now, seated across from the quartet, he watched in fascination, somewhere between awe and alarm. Each of the girls was undeniably Lydia's. Same hazel eyes, same confident tilt of the chin. But that was where the similarities ended. Lucy, the eldest by 4 minutes, and determined to let the world know, sat with perfect posture, scanning the menu with the intensity of a trial lawyer. "I don't think they have mac and cheese here," she declared, "but that's okay. I'm in the mood for filet mignon anyway." Adam blinked. Filet mignon. Lena, seated to Lucy's left, had already stolen Adam's cloth napkin and twisted it into a makeshift bow tie for her stuffed llama. She kept popping her head under the table and giggling, clearly planning something. Her pigtails bounced with every mischievous idea. Lily, the youngest and the quietest, had locked her wide eyes on Adam since they sat down, clutching a tattered picture book titled, "Mr. Moon Finds a Friend." She didn't speak, just observed, like a tiny scientist taking note of a rare species, the adult male in a fancy restaurant who hadn't yet run away. And at the center of the chaos was Lydia. She wasn't just managing them, she was dancing with them. A gentle correction here, a firm, "no elbows on the table" there, followed by a warm smile or a whispered joke. She refilled water cups, adjusted ponytails, wiped a dab of ketchup from Lena's chin, all without missing a beat in conversation. Adam found himself captivated. She was present, not flustered, not performative, just steady and stunning. As Lydia ordered for the girls, "Yes, they'll share the lobster risotto, no appetizers, thank you," Adam offered a crooked smile. "So, triplets, that must be peaceful." Lydia laughed. "Only during dental appointments. And even then, only if they give us laughing gas." Lucy chimed in. "Mom says we're a blessing and a full-time job." "Mostly a full-time job," Lena added, mouth full of breadstick. Adam chuckled, the first genuine laugh that had slipped from his lips in months. Something about their unfiltered energy pulled at something long dormant inside him. Just then, a man at the next table, a silver-haired patron in an over-ironed suit, cleared his throat dramatically. "Excuse me," the man said, not to Adam, but to Lydia. "This is Harbor and Hearth. Perhaps children would be better suited for Applebee's." The room froze, tension falling over the table like a sudden cold front. Lydia's eyes narrowed, her body going still. She opened her mouth, but Adam beat her to it. He turned slowly toward the man, voice low but firm. "You know what's funny? I've been in places where silence was enforced with rifles and landmines. But somehow, the joyful giggle of a child is what ruins your risotto." The man stared at him, dumbfounded. Adam continued, calm as ever. "They've been more polite than most adults I know, including the ones eavesdropping on conversations that aren't theirs." The man opened his mouth, then closed it again, muttering something unintelligible as he turned back to his plate. Lena whispered, "Is he gonna cry?" Lucy smirked. "He should. That was a solid takedown." Lydia blinked at Adam, visibly stunned. Her expression softened, not with gratitude exactly, but with curiosity. Like she was seeing him not just as a man Linda set up, but as someone who might just understand how to show up when it mattered. "Thank you," she said quietly, brushing her hair behind one ear. Adam shrugged. "Didn't like his tie anyway." Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat too long, neither looked away. Then Lily reached across the table and gently touched Adam's sleeve. He looked down. She didn't speak, just handed him her crayon-drawn picture from the restaurant's kids' menu. It was a stick figure man, next to a stick figure girl in a dress, and 3 small figures with pigtails and wild scribbles for hair, all holding hands under a giant rainbow. Adam stared at it, stunned. Lucy leaned in, whispering, "Lily draws her future family a lot." Adam swallowed. Lydia gently took the picture and folded it. "Okay, Picasso. Let's not traumatize the nice man just yet." But Adam only smiled. Somewhere inside his chest, something long frozen had begun to shift, like an old wooden door slowly creaking open. The storm outside Harbor and Hearth had rolled in quietly, like an uninvited guest. Raindrops now traced lazy paths down the tall windows, blurring the golden street lamps into watercolor smudges. Inside, the glow was soft, the chatter low. Their table, though cleared of plates and crayons, still held something unspoken. Lydia cradled her coffee cup with both hands. "Most people assume they're mine biologically," she said, her voice calm but distant. Adam tilted his head. "They're not?" "No." She gave a quiet smile. "They were born into chaos. Their biological mom was unstable. In and out of rehab, jail, different cities. The system wanted to split the girls up. 3 foster homes, 3 different counties." Adam frowned. "Separate them?" Lydia nodded. Apparently, it was logistically easier. She rolled the words in her mouth like something sour. But they weren't just siblings. They were bonded. In a way I can't explain. They held each other like lifelines. He looked toward the empty chairs where the girls had been sitting just an hour earlier. "How did you get involved?" "I volunteered at a shelter part-time. One night, I saw Lily crying in a corner, clutching her sister's shoe. It didn't even belong to her. She just didn't want to let go of any part of them." Adam didn't speak, but his grip tightened subtly around his glass. Lydia continued. "I applied for emergency foster custody the next day. Everyone said it was temporary. Just a few weeks until the state figured it out. That was 4 years ago." Adam tried to picture her, not in designer clothes or corporate boardrooms, but kneeling on shelter floors, brushing hair, holding tiny hands. "You kept them together," he said softly. "No," she corrected. "They kept me together." There was a pause, quiet but not empty. Adam considered asking more, but Lydia had shifted the conversation before he could. "What about you?" she asked. "Military, right?" He nodded. "Yeah. Army. Logistics and tactical transport." "Where were you stationed?" "A lot of places," he said vaguely, eyes darting toward the rain. She didn't push, not at first, just sipped her drink and watched him over the rim. "You mentioned your son, Evan." Adam nodded slowly, but not his mom. He glanced at her, startled, not by the question but by her quiet precision. She wasn't prying. She was listening between the lines. "She passed," he finally said. 3 years ago." "I'm sorry," he shrugged. "Me too." Lydia waited, as if giving him space to go on. But Adam wasn't ready. Not yet. He didn't tell her about the hospital bed, or the late-night promises whispered into fading breath. He didn't tell her about the guilt, the weight of parenting alone, or the unopened box of Rachel's letters still sitting in his closet. Instead, he turned the conversation again, asking, "Why dinner here? Why the test?" Lydia smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Because charm is easy," she said. "It's cheap. But character? That shows up when you least expect it." He arched a brow. "You test all your dates like this?" "No," she said frankly. "But you were different. Linda speaks highly of you. And in my world—" "Millionaire world?" she smirked. In my world, people wear masks. They say the right things, tip the right way, but it's always rehearsed. I needed to know if you'd flinch. You didn't. Not until the check came. They both chuckled, but then Lydia leaned forward, gaze steady. Can I ask you something that might sound blunt? Adam braced slightly. Shoot. She hesitated for only a breath. Are you financially stable, Adam? The words hung heavy between them, like a sudden crack in glass. I'm not asking to judge, she added quickly. And it's not about the bill. I paid that because I invited you. But I have 3 little girls who've been let down more times than they can count. I just need to know you're not another charming man with good stories and no anchor. Adam stiffened. I pay my bills, he said. I fix cars out of a rented garage. I take my son to school on time. I don't have a yacht or a house in Malibu, but we eat. We laugh. We're okay. I didn't mean to offend, but you did. His voice wasn't angry, just tight. There was a long pause. Then Adam stood. I think I should go. Lydia's expression flickered. Regret, maybe, or simply surprise. Adam. It's fine, he said, slipping on his jacket. Thanks for dinner. And the lesson. He turned and walked away before she could respond. But as he passed the coat check, a voice called out softly behind him. Mr. Carter? He turned. It was Lily. She held out his umbrella, arms barely reaching. You forgot, she whispered. He took it gently. Thanks, sweetheart. And then she did something unexpected. She hugged him. Just one quick, awkward squeeze around the waist. Then she scurried back toward the restaurant, curls bouncing, her sisters watching from behind the glass. Adam stood on the sidewalk, stunned. The rain had lightened, but something else weighed on him now, something far harder to shake than weather. He glanced back at the window. Lydia was still at the table, staring down at her untouched dessert. But her expression had changed, no longer confident, just contemplative. As Adam walked into the night, umbrella forgotten in his hand, he realized something had shifted. He wasn't just walking away from a date. He might have been walking away from a second chance. The bell above the door at Morning Brew Cafe gave its usual soft chime as Adam stepped inside, shaking off a few drops of lingering drizzle from his jacket. The familiar smell of cinnamon and roasted beans wrapped around him like a comforting old scarf. The place hadn't changed in years. Same scuffed hardwood floors, same cozy booths with vintage throw pillows, same stubborn ficus plant by the window that Linda swore was immortal. Linda herself stood behind the counter, steaming milk with the flair of someone who took her job a little too personally. You're early, she called out with a knowing smile. Adam raised an eyebrow. Didn't know this was a timed meeting. She waved a hand. It's not. Just, fate's got good timing today. He narrowed his eyes. That tone, too casual, too rehearsed. But before he could press her, the cafe door chimed again. He turned and froze. Lydia Monroe walked in, a vision of understated grace in jeans, boots, and a navy peacoat. Her hair was pulled into a low ponytail, raindrops dotting the shoulders of her coat. Behind her, like a tiny cavalry of chaos, came Lucy, Lena, and Lily, each in raincoats of different colors, each already trying to out-talk the other. Linda! The girls squealed in unison. Linda leaned on the counter, grinning. My favorite tornadoes. Lydia blinked when she spotted Adam. For a half-second, her expression flickered. Surprise? Maybe hesitation? But then she smiled, a simple, polite smile. Adam, she said. Lydia. He nodded slowly, unsure what was happening, but suddenly very aware of Linda casually disappearing into the kitchen, humming. Looks like we both like this place, Lydia said, gesturing to the cozy interior. Yeah, Adam replied, his voice a notch softer. Feels like home. Just then, An elderly man in a damp windbreaker entered, clutching a small paper bag and walking with visible effort. He looked around, confused, before fumbling in his pocket. A bottle of pills tumbled to the floor. Without hesitation, Lydia stepped forward. "Let me help you," she said gently, kneeling to retrieve the bottle. The man nodded gratefully, his voice raspy. "Blood pressure. Hands ain't what they used to be." Lydia smiled. "Happens to the best of us. Sit down. I'll get Linda to bring you some water." Adam watched quietly from a few feet away. There was no performance in her actions, no expectation of acknowledgement, just kindness, simple and sincere. It caught him off guard, more than the rain, more than the surprise meeting. He was still watching when he felt a tug on his sleeve. "Hey," whispered Lena, her green raincoat covered in ladybugs. "Want to help us?" He looked down to find the triplets at the corner booth, a box of puzzles dumped across the table. Lucy added, "We need an extra brain. Mom's too slow." "I am not," Lydia called over from across the room, half laughing. "You might be outnumbered here," Adam said, amused. Lily, the quietest of the three, patted the empty spot beside her. "We made space." Adam hesitated. "Just one game," he told himself. "Then you leave." But that chair looked too inviting, and their eyes, wide with hope, mischief, and trust, felt like a warm fire on a cold night. He sat down. Within minutes, he found himself lost in a world of cardboard pieces, matching edges, and little girl debates about which shade of blue was ocean and which was sky. Lena declared him puzzle boss. Lucy called him Sergeant Peace. Lily didn't say much, but every now and then, she'd lean against his arm, humming under her breath, perfectly content. It was the first time in years Adam laughed without guarding it. Not the polite chuckle, not the tired smile he gave Evan after a hard day. A real, full laugh, round and bright and completely unplanned. From across the cafe, Lydia saw it. She hadn't meant to stare, but the sight caught her breath. Adam hunched slightly at the table, guiding Lily's small hand to the right piece, his smile soft, eyes light. Not the man who walked away wounded from their last conversation, but someone, somehow, lighter. She walked over with 2 cups in hand. "Thought you might want something warm." Adam looked up. "Thanks." The girls were too busy arguing over whether the duck-shaped piece belonged to the clouds or the pond to notice the sudden hush between the adults. "I wasn't sure you'd stay," Lydia said. "Me neither," Adam replied honestly. "But they're persuasive." "They tend to be." She handed him a cup. "Hot chocolate." I took a risk. He tasted it, then grinned. "Good risk." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the girls. "Adam," Lydia said slowly, "about the other night. I may have come off a little strong." Adam chuckled. "You were honest. Can't fault that. Still," she added, "you didn't deserve to be grilled like a job interview." "I've been through worse," he replied with a soft smile. She studied him for a moment, then leaned in. "There's a charity event I'm hosting next weekend. It's a community cleanup and cookout. Just something simple to bring people together. We raise funds for shelter renovations." He looked skeptical. "And you're inviting me because I saw the way you looked at them," she said, nodding to the triplets. "And the way they looked at you." Adam hesitated. "I'm not asking for anything," Lydia added. "Not a second date. Not even a long conversation. Just show up. Be there. If nothing else, they'll be thrilled." He looked down at Lily, now curled beside him like a sleepy cat, eyes drooping. "I'll think about it," he said quietly. "That's all I ask." As Lydia walked back to the counter to settle the bill, Adam remained at the booth, hands warm around the cup, heart a little heavier and a little fuller than before. For the first time in a long while, The idea of showing up didn't feel so impossible. Sunlight dappled the community park, filtering through the late afternoon trees in golden shafts as volunteers moved briskly under the fluttering white tents. There was a sense of cheer in the air. Paper lanterns swayed. The scent of slow-roasted barbecue teased the breeze, and children's laughter floated between folding chairs and picnic blankets. Adam Carter crouched near the temporary stage, tightening bolts on the final plank of the wooden platform. His flannel sleeves were rolled up, forearms dusty with sawdust, sweat glistening faintly at his temple. The rhythm of work grounded him, precise, familiar, purposeful. Just behind him, the triplets darted between crates of decorations, each gripping a different colored string of bulb lights. "Higher," Lucy demanded, climbing halfway up the small ladder Adam had reluctantly allowed. "Lena, stop tangling them!" Lily cried, holding a loop of lights like it was a rare artifact. "I'm not tangling, I'm organizing," Lena countered with a dramatic toss of her braid. Adam grinned. "Ladies, what happened to teamwork?" "Teamwork is overrated when you have sisters," Lucy replied dryly, drawing laughter from a passing volunteer. Still, under his watchful eye, the girls managed to help hang the lights across the wooden beams, their energy brightening the space more than any decoration. Lydia arrived moments later, clipboard in hand, hair pinned back, dressed simply in jeans and a navy blouse, but somehow still radiating the kind of elegance that made people unconsciously straighten when she passed. She gave Adam a grateful nod, before leaning down to whisper something to Lucy. The girl giggled and pointed at Adam, who instantly grew suspicious. "She's plotting," he warned. "Always," Lydia replied with a half-smile. By late afternoon, the event was in full swing. Local bands played acoustic sets, kids ran around with face paint and balloon animals, and donations steadily filled a plexiglass box labeled "For Our Future Shelter." Adam stood off to the side, sipping lemonade from a paper cup, watching Lydia speak with an elderly donor. Her tone was firm but warm, her posture poised, even in heels that had no business walking across grass. She commanded the moment, not with volume or ego, but with quiet conviction. He didn't realize he was smiling until a familiar voice broke through the haze. "Adam?" He turned to see Linda, her expression unusually sober, holding her phone. "You might want to come with me." Something in her tone made his gut tighten. They stepped behind a vendor tent, out of earshot. Linda handed him her phone. The screen opened to an email forwarded by someone at Lydia's law firm. It was a custody filing. A relative of the triplets, a great-aunt from out of state, had submitted a formal petition for emergency guardianship, claiming Lydia's lifestyle was incompatible with full-time motherhood. The accusation was thinly veiled. Too rich, too busy, too young to understand the needs of 3 children. Adam felt the blood drain from his face. "Does Lydia know?" he asked. Linda nodded solemnly. "Just told her. She's with the girls now." Without thinking, Adam moved, long strides cutting across the field. He spotted her near the raffle booth, kneeling beside Lily to tie a loose shoelace. Lucy and Lena stood nearby, faces puzzled by their mother's uncharacteristic silence. Lydia rose slowly, eyes glassy but dry. She caught Adam's gaze, and in that fleeting moment he saw it. The fracture beneath her strength. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a pause, a flicker, like glass catching too much light. And then it was gone. She straightened, composed, impeccable. Her hand found Lily's shoulder and squeezed gently. Adam approached cautiously, his voice low. "You okay?" Lydia nodded, but her eyes didn't meet his. "I'll fight it," she said quietly, as if willing herself to believe it, before the world demanded proof. "They don't know these girls. They don't know our story." "Then tell me," he said softly. That made her look at him. really look, as if searching for the catch in his voice, the angle in his intention. But all she found was sincerity. "They want to split them," she said, barely above a whisper. "Place each in a different foster home. They think it's easier that way. Less burden per guardian." Adam's jaw clenched. "That's not a solution. That's a sentence." Her breath hitched, just slightly. They were found in a motel room. Their biological parents overdosed in the next one. No one even realized for 2 days. They only had each other. Adam's chest tightened. He glanced at the girls, still oblivious, still laughing over a volunteer trying to juggle apples. "They're not perfect," Lydia continued, "but they belong together. And I may not have come into their lives the normal way, but I'm not letting anyone take them." Adam nodded slowly. "Then you won't be alone in this." She blinked. "What?" He stepped closer, voice firm. "You've got me. Whatever this becomes, whatever fight's coming, I'm in." "You barely know us," she said, voice trembling now. "I know enough," he replied. "I know what kind of mother you are. I know those girls adore you. And I know what it feels like to watch someone try to take away the one piece of family you have left." Silence stretched between them, not awkward, but heavy with meaning. The girls ran up, chattering about the prize wheel and cotton candy. Lucy grabbed Lydia's hand. Lena tugged Adam's sleeve. Lily hugged both their legs at once. Lydia looked down at the pile of tiny arms around them, then back at Adam. Her lips parted, words catching somewhere between gratitude and disbelief. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Don't," Adam said gently. "Just fight. For them. And when the storm comes, let me be your shelter." And for the first time since the news had shattered her calm, Lydia allowed herself to lean, not in weakness, but in trust. Not just in Adam, but in the hope that maybe, just maybe, family was something you could choose. The rain came lightly that morning, just enough to speckle the sidewalk and paint the world in reflective silver. Adam Carter stood by the front window of his small apartment above the garage, a coffee mug warming his calloused hands. His eyes were fixed on the quiet street, but his mind was far from still. He had spent the night replaying Lydia's words, the court notice, the look on the girls' faces when they'd handed him handmade "thank you" cards wrapped in glitter and innocence. He hadn't slept much, but his decision was clear. He would dig. Deep. A quiet knock came from behind. Linda stepped into the apartment, still wearing her cafe apron and balancing a tray with 2 croissants and a refill of coffee. "You look like a man planning something illegal," she said, smirking as she set the tray down. Adam cracked a faint smile. "Just using old tools for a new mission. Tools with dog tags? Something like that." He opened his laptop, fingers already typing an old code string into a private veterans intel forum, one only accessible through personal invite and a past steeped in service. There were few places civilians couldn't go. This was one of them. "You think you'll find something useful?" Linda asked, sitting beside him. "If this relative's going after custody with that much confidence, I need to know what kind of person we're dealing with." He clicked through layers of posts, requesting background checks discreetly. The military had taught him to recognize manipulation patterns. This sudden custody claim didn't smell like love. It smelled like leverage. Linda studied his profile. He looked more alive than she'd seen him in months. Focused, centered, determined. "You've changed," she said gently. He looked up. "What do you mean?" "I mean, for months, maybe even years, you were living like a ghost, just here. Breathing, but not living. And now, suddenly, this woman, these girls." She paused. "You're back." Adam's face shifted. There was something behind his eyes. Not fear, something more elusive. Guilt, maybe even shame. I made Rachel a promise, he said quietly. When she died, I told her I wouldn't let the grief swallow me, that I'd move on, build a life for Evan, for myself. And you haven't? Linda tilted her head. He didn't answer. You think loving again means betraying her, she continued. Because that's not how love works, Adam. A long silence settled. She was the love of my past, he whispered. But maybe that doesn't mean she has to be the love of my only story. Linda's voice softened. She would want you to be happy, Adam. And Evan. God, that boy needs to see his father live, not just function. He leaned back, letting her words wash over him. Live, not just function. The laptop pinged. A message flashed from an old contact, Ramos, a military buddy who had since taken a position in private investigations. Relative's name, Carol Ann Morelli. Alias, C.A. Grant. 2 former charges, financial fraud in 2007, real estate scam in 2011. Both charges dropped after settlements. Nothing since, but she's not clean. You should tread carefully. Adam exhaled. So this was more than family. It was opportunity masked as concern. He turned the screen toward Linda. She doesn't care about the girls, he said. This is about money. Maybe leverage. Maybe she thinks Lydia's vulnerable, and she can shake something loose. Linda's lips pressed tight. Can you get this into Lydia's hands legally? Adam nodded. I'll pass it to her lawyer anonymously first. Let them vet it and present it officially. But I'm going to make sure Carol Ann knows someone's watching her now. Linda smiled, proud. The protector's back. Adam closed the laptop, sat still for a moment, then reached for his phone. You calling Lydia? She asked. He hesitated, then shook his head. No, not yet. She has enough on her plate. His eyes twinkled faintly. But I do know 3 little girls who could use an impromptu pancake party. Linda chuckled. I'll get the griddle hot. As she bustled back to the cafe kitchen, Adam stayed seated, eyes drifting back to the window, where the rain had begun to clear. The clouds were parting slowly, revealing blue behind gray. There was still a storm to face in court. Still questions about where this connection with Lydia might lead. But for the first time in years, Adam felt something shift inside him. Not the ache of memory, but the spark of momentum. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was choosing to step forward. And maybe, just maybe, love didn't mean replacing the past. It meant expanding the story. The Monroe Grand Hotel stood tall and gleaming against the afternoon sky, its modern glass frame reflecting golden sunlight. Inside, the grand ballroom buzzed with conversations and laughter as Lydia moved gracefully between guests. She wore her signature calm, her hand gliding over the small of her tailored dress as she offered warm greetings and polished smiles. Behind the scenes, though, her mind was splintered. Hosting a high-profile charity gala while keeping an eye on 3 8-year-old girls was a feat no spreadsheet could quantify. She had set up a small suite for the triplets, fully stocked with puzzles, coloring books, and enough snacks to distract a kindergarten class for hours. But trouble, as always, came when you least expected it. Down in the service hallway near the guest elevators, Adam Carter had just finished helping the maintenance team unload stage panels for the evening's performance. He was sweaty, slightly dusty, and halfway through a bottle of water when a blood-curdling scream echoed through the corridor. It was Lena. "Lucy's stuck! The elevator! She's in there!" Adam dropped the bottle and ran. A concierge tried to stop him, but he flashed the man a look only combat veterans could conjure. It didn't need translation. The concierge stepped aside. The elevator panel blinked erratically. Power outage. Emergency override flashing. Adam slammed the call button. Nothing. Inside, he could hear it. Light sobbing, panicked breaths. "Lucy, it's Adam. Can you hear me?" A small voice echoed from within. "I can't get out. It's dark. I don't like the dark." His jaw clenched. "I'm gonna get you, kiddo. I promise." He turned to the concierge. "Where's your maintenance panel?" "Down the hall. Red door." Adam didn't wait. He burst into the panel room, found the override box, and scanned the blueprint taped to the inside. Elevator 3, mid-level stop. Faulty sensor had triggered a lockdown between floors. Returning with a crowbar and flashlight, he knelt by the elevator door, pried back the metal edge, and peered into the shadowed shaft. The car was wedged just low enough that Lucy couldn't climb out, not without slipping, not safely. "Hang on, Lucy, I'm coming." The doors groaned as he forced them apart. Sparks flew as metal scraped metal. He ignored it. Bracing his legs, Adam lowered himself halfway into the narrow gap and extended his arms. "Come here, sweetheart. I've got you." There was a beat of silence, then the soft shuffle of movement. Lucy's tiny hands reached toward him, trembling. Adam's strong arms locked around her torso, lifting her with one swift motion. As soon as her feet cleared the threshold, the elevator gave a shuddering lurch. The concierge gasped, but Adam twisted just in time, shielding Lucy with his body as they tumbled back onto the hallway floor. He didn't feel the pain. He only heard her sobbing into his chest. "You're okay," he whispered, arms around her like armor. "You're safe now." Footsteps thundered down the corridor. "Lucy!" Lydia's voice cracked with fear. She turned the corner at full speed, hair loose from its elegant bun, her heels discarded somewhere behind her. She dropped to her knees beside them. "Baby, are you hurt?" Lucy shook her head through tears and clutched Adam tighter. Then Lena and Lily arrived, flinging themselves into the hug. "We thought she was gone!" Lena wailed. "We didn't know what to do!" Adam's arms widened to pull them all in, and for a few quiet seconds, the world outside the hotel hallway disappeared. Lydia's eyes met his, wide and glassy. "You went in after her," she said, her voice a whisper. "You risked yourself." He swallowed hard, brushing hair from Lucy's forehead. "Of course I did." It wasn't bravado. It wasn't instinct. It was something deeper. Something primal, something familial. In that instant, something in Adam Carter shifted irrevocably. These girls, who weren't his blood, had carved a place in his heart with crayons, questions, and clumsy knock-knock jokes. And Lydia, she wasn't just the woman who'd stunned him with a $900 dinner tab. She was the woman who made chaos look elegant, who'd fought to keep three sisters from being torn apart, who now sat, shaking with gratitude in a hotel hallway, her hand clinging to his. They weren't just people he was helping. They were his. Later, as paramedics double-checked Lucy and hotel staff rebooted the elevator systems, Adam sat alone on the edge of the planter near the hotel entrance. His back ached, his palms were scraped, but his heart, it beat differently now. Lydia approached quietly, holding 2 cups of hot cocoa with little marshmallows. "Doctor said she's fine, just a little shaken." He nodded, accepting the cup. "Good." She looked at him for a long moment, then said softly, "You didn't hesitate. You didn't even think twice." "I couldn't," he said. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of things not yet said, of walls gently coming down. "I'm not good at letting people in," she confessed. He met her eyes. "Me neither." Then, a small voice called from the lobby. "Adam, you promised a rematch at Candyland." Adam chuckled. "I guess I did." As he stood, Lydia reached for his hand, and for the first time, he didn't flinch. The sky over the Monroe estate was painted in watercolor hues, soft lavenders melting into dusky golds as twilight settled in. The air was warm, summer sweet, carrying the scent of honeysuckle and freshly mowed grass. Crickets had begun their nightly orchestra. Adam sat on the back porch steps, arms resting on his knees, staring out over the garden, where Lena and Lily were chasing fireflies, while Lucy lay quietly on a blanket, reading a book by flashlight. Lydia sat beside him, cradling a glass of red wine, the rim untouched. They hadn't spoken much since dinner, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind that waited patiently, the kind that gave permission to speak when you were ready. Adam inhaled deeply, then exhaled like he was about to jump out of a plane again. "I need to tell you something," he said. Lydia turned toward him, not speaking, only listening. "I wasn't always like this," he paused. Calm, put together, or at least appearing that way. She gave him a small smile. "I didn't think you were." He huffed out a soft laugh, grateful for her grace. "After I left the Marines, I thought I'd transition easily. I had discipline. I had leadership skills. Everyone kept saying vets were resilient." He looked down at his hands. What they didn't talk about was how quiet the house gets when your purpose is gone. She didn't interrupt. "I started a small construction firm, poured everything into it. On the surface, it worked, for a while. But the truth is, I was unraveling. Nightmares, insomnia. I drank more than I should have. I pushed people away, including the few who stuck around after Rachel passed. Then the market turned. I lost everything. Filed for bankruptcy. Woke up one day with nothing but a toolbox and a little boy who deserved more than a broken man." Lydia's eyes softened. "That boy is lucky to have you." He shook his head. "I didn't always believe that. For a long time I thought Evan would be better off without me. That I was a ghost walking around in my own life." A long pause, then her voice, tender but steady. "I know what it's like, to be haunted by who you used to be." He turned to her, surprised. She looked toward the garden, her tone suddenly distant, wounds stitched but not forgotten. "Before the girls, before Monroe & Co. became what it is now, I was engaged. Young, hopeful, blind. He was charismatic. He made me feel like I was the only person in the room, even when I should have realized I wasn't." Adam's fists tightened around his knees. "He siphoned my accounts, lied to investors in my name. When it all unraveled, I was left with debt, shame, and headlines that reduced me to a cautionary tale. My family told me to disappear quietly, but I didn't. I started over. Smaller, slower, smarter." Her voice grew quieter. "But it took years before I could look at myself in the mirror without seeing a fool." Adam looked at her, really looked, and saw the echo of the storm she'd weathered, just as she'd seen his. Two people, stripped down by life and still standing. "Why are we so good at hiding the broken parts?" he murmured. "Because people don't applaud scars," she replied. "Only strength." "But sometimes," Adam said, "they're the same thing." Silence again, this time heavier, not from awkwardness, but from the weight of truth finally laid bare. "I'm afraid," Adam admitted, his voice low. "Afraid I'll never be enough. Not for Evan. Not for you. Not for the life I've started to imagine." Lydia's breath caught, barely audible. "I'm afraid, too," she said, "of letting someone in again. Of trusting my heart to someone who might leave, even if it's not his fault." Their eyes met, two fault lines converging. "But we're already here, aren't we?" Lydia whispered. Adam nodded. "Yeah, we are." She looked away, blinking. "I don't know how to do this slowly, Adam. My life doesn't move at a careful pace." "I don't need slow," he said. "I just need real." She looked at him again, and this time, something shifted. Something that had hovered at the edges of them since their first dinner, now stepped forward, no longer hiding. The porch light flickered on. In the yard, Lucy looked up and called, "Mom! Adam! We caught 11 fireflies!" Lydia smiled, the kind that made the world feel gentler. "Looks like you have fans," she said. He stood, offered her his hand. "They're not the only ones I'm trying to catch," he said, only half joking. She placed her fingers in his. Their hands didn't shake. The courtroom was cold. Not because of the air conditioning. It was the kind of chill that seeped from polished marble floors and sterile fluorescent lights. It was the cold of bureaucracy, of lives being measured in custody percentages and sworn affidavits. Lydia sat at the front, her palms resting on the oak table before her, back impossibly straight. She wore a dark navy suit, no jewelry, no distractions, just determination and quiet fire. The girls weren't in the room yet. They were in the adjoining playroom, unaware that somewhere beyond the beige-painted walls, their future was being debated by strangers. The opposing counsel, a lean man with a rehearsed smile and sharp tone, stood to speak. "Your Honor, we believe Ms. Monroe, though accomplished, is unable to provide the consistent presence these children require. Our client, Mr. Charles Dunning, a blood relative, is prepared to relocate and dedicate himself fully to their upbringing." Lydia didn't flinch, though the words pricked her like needles. She had rehearsed this moment, expected this narrative. The working mother trope spun with polished venom. The judge, a woman in her 60s with perceptive eyes, turned slightly. "Ms. Monroe, do you have any rebuttal?" Lydia stood, heart steady. "Yes, Your Honor. While I understand Mr. Dunning's claim of relation, I have been these girls' mother in every way that matters since the day I found out they were going to be separated by the system. I chose them. I have raised them with love, structure, and safety, and though my work is demanding, I have never let it come before their well-being. Ever." There was a pause. "And where is Mr. Dunning today?" the judge asked, glancing toward the empty seat beside opposing counsel. Before the lawyer could stammer a response, the courtroom door opened, firm, unhurried. Adam stepped in. He wasn't in uniform, but he may as well have been. His posture was clean, centered, in his hand, a manila folder. He nodded respectfully to the judge before approaching Lydia's attorney and whispering something in her ear. She turned pale, then quickly stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to submit new evidence. Verified records pertaining to Mr. Dunning's criminal history. Financial fraud, embezzlement, and a suspended sentence in another state. He failed to disclose this in his petition." The judge arched a brow. "Is that true?" Opposing counsel swallowed. "Your Honor, we're unaware of this development. We request time to review." "Request denied," the judge interrupted. "You brought this case forward, and your client isn't even present." Lydia turned toward Adam, shock flickering behind her composed eyes. Adam gave a small nod. He had used every connection he had left, made calls to old friends in JAG, dug into public records, pulled late nights piecing together a picture of a man who didn't deserve even a moment of these girls' future. He hadn't told Lydia. He didn't want to give her hope until it mattered. The judge straightened her glasses. "In light of this information and the absence of Mr. Dunning, the court finds no merit in removing custody from Ms. Monroe. Case dismissed." For a moment, the room held its breath. Then the door to the playroom opened, and like a flock of birds set free, Lucy, Lena, and Lily sprinted into the courtroom. "Mama!" Lucy cried. "Is it over?" Lena yelled, eyes wide. "We're staying, right?" Lily asked, her voice small but certain. Lydia dropped to her knees just in time to catch them as they rushed into her arms. The weight of them, their tiny frames and enormous love, nearly knocked her over. She laughed, then cried all at once. Her composure finally cracked. "Yes," she whispered into their hair. "You're staying. Always." It was then she looked up, through misted eyes, and found Adam standing quietly, just a few feet back, not looking for praise, not asking for recognition, just there. Solid. She rose slowly, still holding one hand of each girl, and walked toward him. "You did this," she said softly. He shrugged. "Just made a few calls." "No," she said, her voice firmer. "You showed up when it counted. That's what real family does." The girls looked between the two of them, something unspoken passing in their glances. Then Lena, the brave one, the bold spark among them, stepped forward. "Adam," she said, tugging on his hand, "do you want to get pizza with us, like a family?" Adam smiled, and for the first time it didn't feel like stepping into someone else's life. It felt like home. Snow dusted the sidewalks of harbor and hearth, dancing in the glow of old-fashioned lanterns and reflecting off the frosted windows like tiny fragments of stars. Inside, warmth spilled from the restaurant's soft lighting and the faint scent of cinnamon and roasted chestnuts. A towering Christmas tree stood near the entrance, wrapped in ribbons and glowing ornaments, each one twinkling like a memory waiting to be made. Adam stood just inside the door, brushing flakes from his shoulders. His breath caught for a moment as he scanned the room. It hadn't changed since that first chaotic dinner. The soft jazz in the background, the low hum of clinking glasses, and laughter that floated gently between tables. But something felt profoundly different. He wasn't here out of obligation. He was here because he couldn't imagine being anywhere else. Lydia appeared near the bar, radiant in a deep emerald dress, her hair swept to one side in effortless grace. The triplets, Lucy, Lena, and Lily, were clustered around a gingerbread house display, their matching red dresses gleaming under the lights, each with a tiny gold bow in her hair. When Lydia spotted him, her expression shifted into something warm and quietly hopeful. "You made it," she said, walking over. "I said I would," Adam replied, offering a small, genuine smile. He expected her to lead him toward the girls, but instead she took his hand and guided him to a table nestled in a quiet corner, the same table from their very first dinner, the same table where everything began. 3 child-sized seats were already filled with coloring sheets, crayons, and half-sipped glasses of apple cider. And then, one adult chair sat at the head of the table, unoccupied, its white napkin folded perfectly. A polished fork and knife sat beside an untouched plate. A small pine wreath had been laid across its backrest. Adam looked at it for a moment, then at Lydia. "I've always wondered about that chair," he said quietly. Lydia nodded, her eyes lingering on the empty seat. "When I adopted the girls, I told the hostess here to always leave that one unclaimed." "Why?" "Because," she said, her voice soft, "I believed that someday someone would come along who didn't just love them, but understood what it meant to show up for them. Someone who'd sit not just beside me, but beside them, fully." Adam glanced toward the triplets, who were now giggling at a waiter trying to balance 3 desserts at once. "And tonight," Lydia continued, "this chair isn't empty anymore. Not if you want it." The words hit him with the force of quiet thunder. No grand declarations, no elaborate setup. Just truth, clear and disarming. His throat tightened. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that," Adam admitted. "You don't have to say anything." Just then, Lucy trotted over, tugging at the sleeve of his jacket, her big brown eyes, curious, trusting, utterly unguarded, looked up into his. "Bo," she whispered, the Vietnamese word she had insisted on using ever since Linda jokingly told her what it meant. "Bo, Ngoi Shongji. Dad, sit down. Time seemed to slow. He looked at Lydia, who smiled through tears she wasn't hiding. At Lucy's tiny hand resting in his. At the two other girls now turning in their seats, eyes wide with anticipation. He had thought he'd used up all his courage in Iraq, but the kind of courage it took to walk into a burning memory and choose love again, that was different. That was harder. And yet, he pulled out the chair and sat. The girls erupted in cheers as if someone had scored a goal in the World Cup. Lena threw a crayon into the air like confetti. Lily reached for his hand and held it tight. Adam glanced around the table, at the makeshift family that didn't begin in blood, but in choice, in shared smiles, hard conversations, quiet gestures, and messy gingerbread houses. Is this the official seat of troublemakers and bedtime negotiators? He asked with a playful glance at the girls. No, Lena said. That's Lucy's job. They all laughed. Dinner arrived. Laughter flowed. And at some point, Lydia leaned over and whispered, "Welcome home." Adam didn't respond with words. He just squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of it anchor him more surely than any battle gear ever had. Outside, snow continued to fall. But inside, in the heart of a corner booth that once held doubt and distance, sat a man who had finally taken his seat, not just at the table, but in the lives of those who had quietly been waiting for him all along. It was the morning after Christmas, and the world outside Lydia's home glistened with soft white snow, untouched and pure. The triplets were nestled on the living room floor, still in their matching candy cane pajamas, surrounded by torn wrapping paper and half-built Lego castles. The fire crackled gently, casting a golden hue over the scene. Adam sat on the couch, one leg crossed over the other, a mug of hot cocoa in his hand, courtesy of Lucy, who insisted it needed 3 marshmallows for maximum coziness. He'd spent the night on the pull-out in the guest room, but he hadn't slept much. Not because it was uncomfortable, but because his heart had never felt so full and terrified at the same time. Lydia stood in the kitchen, quietly making cinnamon rolls, humming a tune that Adam didn't recognize, but somehow felt familiar. He watched her, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the way she moved with the grace of someone who had rebuilt a life with her own 2 hands. "Adam!" Lily called out, dragging a glittery construction paper envelope toward him. "We have something for you." Lena and Lucy ran up behind her, giggling, cheeks flushed with excitement. "What is this?" he asked, setting down the mug and taking the envelope as if it were made of glass. "It's your bill," Lucy said proudly, her hands on her hips like a tiny accountant. "Your real bill," Lena emphasized, grinning. Adam raised an eyebrow. "Real bill?" "From the first dinner," Lily chimed in. "You never paid." He chuckled, unfolding the handmade note. Inside, written in colorful marker and uneven handwriting, was a short list. Dinner bill. For Mr. Adam. 1 heart. 1 promise. 3 smiles. Total. Due, a lifetime of staying. Payment method. Love only. Adam stared at the paper, the corners of his mouth twitching as his throat tightened. He looked up. The girls were watching him like baby owls, eyes wide, waiting for a reaction. Lydia leaned in the doorway now, watching too, her expression soft but unreadable. He cleared his throat and set the paper gently on his lap. "I don't have cash," he began, his voice quiet. "Good," Lucy said. "We don't take it. I don't have gold either." "Too heavy," Lena offered. "But—" Adam paused, his gaze sweeping across their eager faces, then to Lydia, who now looked like she might cry. "I do have something worth more," he said slowly. "I'll pay with everything I am. My time, my strength, my past, my future, my heart." He glanced back at the paper and added, almost in a whisper, "I'll pay with my life, if you'll take it." Lucy's face lit up. "That's accepted." The three of them cheered and tackled him into a group hug so chaotic it nearly knocked the cocoa off the side table. Lydia laughed, finally stepping forward, wiping her hands on a towel as she approached. "Girls," she said gently, "give Adam a little room to breathe." "Sorry," Lena giggled, pulling back but still holding his arm like a prized stuffed animal. As the girls skipped back to their toys, Lydia sat down beside Adam on the couch. She didn't say anything at first, just sat close. Close enough for her shoulder to brush his, for her warmth to seep into his skin. Then, without a word, she reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a small silver key. She placed it in his open palm. Adam stared at it, then looked at her. "It's not for marriage," she said quickly, as if to temper the weight of the gesture. "Not yet. No pressure." He looked down again, the key gleaming in the soft firelight. It was simple. No ribbon. No inscription. But somehow, it felt heavier than steel. "It's to the house?" he asked. Lydia nodded. "And to my heart, I figured, if you're paying a lifetime, you might need a door that's always open." Adam's throat constricted. He closed his fingers around the key like it was the most sacred thing he'd ever held. "Lydia," he said, his voice rough now, "I don't know what I did to deserve this." "You showed up," she whispered, "when you didn't have to. That's more than most ever do." He leaned in, resting his forehead gently against hers. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. Outside, snow continued to fall softly. Inside, laughter rose again from the rug, where three little girls were now dressing a teddy bear in a superhero cape made from a kitchen towel. And in the center of it all, Adam sat, with the bill still on his lap, a key in his hand, and a quiet peace in his soul. The sound of sanding filled the garage, soft, rhythmic, purposeful. Adam leaned over the last piece of polished oak, wiping it clean with a worn cloth. His hands, calloused from years of combat, and more recently from second-hand tools, now moved with gentle precision. A faint scent of cedar oil mixed with sawdust hung in the air, comforting and familiar. On the wall behind him hung a blueprint he had sketched weeks ago. Not for a house, not for a mission, just a simple family table. 4 chairs. 1 for each of the girls and 1 for him. The project had started as a distraction, but it became something else. Something sacred. Now, as the late morning sun filtered through the window, Adam carried the final piece into the kitchen. The tabletop. Lydia had cleared space in the sunny breakfast nook where the old table once stood. The light pooled there like a warm invitation. The girls rushed in behind him, eyes wide with excitement. "Is it done?" Lucy gasped. "Can we sit yet?" Lena asked, bouncing on her toes. "Did you do the names?" Lily whispered, clutching a rag doll to her chest. Adam smiled. "Go check." The triplets raced forward. Each of the 3 chairs was carved by hand, sanded smooth, and finished with love. Each bore a name: Lucy, Lena, Lily. And the 4th, taller, broader, still elegant, had 1 word etched in clean, bold letters. Dad. The girls froze, then looked at each other. Then, without a word, all 3 turned and tackled Adam in a heap of giggles and arms. "You made a chair just for you," Lucy beamed. "It's official now," Lena cried. "You're stuck with us forever." "I like stuck," Lily added solemnly. Adam laughed, the sound rich and unburdened. He scooped them up and spun once before setting them down. "Let's finish this," he said. "We've got a family meal to share." They got to work together, Adam fastening the legs, the girls polishing the wood with oversized cloths, and the enthusiasm of miniature laborers. Lydia watched from the doorway, arms crossed, lips curled in a soft smile. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't wipe the tear that escaped. It wasn't just a table, it was a declaration. As Adam bolted the final corner brace, he stepped back, taking in the scene. The kitchen glowed with late afternoon light. The table stood proudly in the center, a little imperfect, a little too big, but exactly right. Lena set down 4 mismatched placemats. Lucy placed cups, one with a chip, one shaped like a panda, one with glitter inside the glass, and one plain blue ceramic. Lily carried over a bowl of Lydia's famous chicken stew. The room filled with the smells of home. As Adam took the seat marked Dad, the girls beamed at him like he'd just won a medal. Lydia sat across from him, a flicker of something deep in her eyes, gratitude, peace, and something even warmer. And then the front door creaked open. "Hope I'm not interrupting." Linda Matthews stepped into the kitchen, wearing her signature oversized scarf and carrying a pie tin wrapped in foil. "Apple and cinnamon," she said, waving it. "Smells like family in here." The girls cheered and rushed her for hugs. She kissed each forehead, then turned to Adam, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "I heard about the table," she said quietly. Adam looked away for a second, almost embarrassed. "Just something I wanted to do." "No," Linda said firmly. "It's more than that." She walked over to the seat labeled Dad, touched the back of it, then looked at him. "You know, Rachel would have smiled seeing you here today." Adam's breath caught. He hadn't spoken Rachel's name aloud in months, maybe longer. It still hurt, but not like it used to. Now the ache was softer, like the echo of a song that used to make him cry, but now made him remember. He stood quietly, pulled Linda into a hug. "Thank you." "No, thank you," she whispered. For finally coming back. They ate together that evening. 4 girls, 1 man, and a kitchen filled with the kind of laughter that made the walls feel like they were breathing. After dinner, Lucy stood and tapped her fork on her cup. "Toast," she declared, "to our new table." "And our new forever," added Lena. "And our new Dad," Lily finished quietly. Everyone raised their glasses. Adam sat in the chair carved with his new title and let the warmth soak into every part of him that once felt cold. The ghosts of his past hadn't left, but they weren't haunting him anymore. They were watching, maybe even cheering. And for the first time in a long, long time, he didn't feel broken. He felt home. The morning sun poured through the wide kitchen window, casting long golden beams across the hardwood floor. Dust motes danced in the light, like tiny floating blessings. In the heart of the room stood the table. Their table. 4 seats. 4 names. Lucy. Lena. Lily. Dad. The aroma of scrambled eggs and cinnamon toast drifted through the air. A kettle whistled gently in the background. The triplets, still wearing mismatched pajamas and morning bedhead, were already in their seats, arguing over syrup distribution like it was a matter of national importance. Adam stood at the counter, pouring milk into 4 glasses. His dog tags glinted faintly under his flannel shirt, but his face, it was softer now. No longer hardened by grief, but weathered with meaning. He was no longer a man passing through life. He had landed. Lydia walked in quietly, carrying a small plate of cut fruit. Her hair was pulled into a loose ponytail, a soft cream sweater hugging her frame. She looked at Adam and smiled, a smile that carried both history and hope. Their eyes met. No words were exchanged. None were needed. There are looks that speak louder than promises, looks that say, "I'm here. I'm staying. We've come through." Adam walked over and placed the glasses down. Lucy gave him a syrup-stained thumbs up. Lena tugged on his sleeve, pointing to her wobbly tooth. Lily reached out without looking, and took his hand under the table, just needing to know he was still there. He was. They all sat. For the first time in years, Adam sat down to a breakfast table that wasn't haunted by silence or shadows. For the first time, every chair was filled. No one was missing. Nothing was broken. Even the tiny chip on the panda mug felt intentional now, like a scar that proved survival. Lydia passed him the butter. He passed her the jam. The sunlight shifted slightly, touching the back of the carved wood on each chair like a quiet benediction. And Adam thought, this table never had enough room for everyone, until now. Later that morning, after the dishes had been cleared and the girls had run off to build a pillow fort in the living room, Adam and Lydia stepped onto the front porch. The air was crisp with early winter. A light breeze stirred the wind chimes, playing a melody that felt almost familiar, like a song he'd forgotten he loved. Lydia wrapped her arm through his. They stood in silence, watching the world move on, slowly and gently. You built that table like you were building something more, she said softly. I guess I was, he replied. Didn't know it at the time. You do now? Adam turned to her, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I know, he said. It's not just about having a place to sit. It's about choosing not to run. Choosing to stay, even when it's hard, even when it's scary. She nodded. That's all they ever wanted, you know. Someone who stays. He looked out at the yard, where tiny footprints dotted the morning dew. He could still hear their laughter echoing through the window. I think I wanted that too, he whispered. Lydia placed a small key in his palm. Delicate, silver, simple. For the front door, she said. But only if you want it. Adam closed his fingers around it. I already made my choice, he said. She leaned in, kissed his cheek, and whispered. Then welcome home. Final scene. Back inside, the table stands quietly. Crumbs on the plates, milk, rings on the wood. A tiny hand-drawn heart taped to the back of Adam's chair. In the background, laughter. A dog barks. A record player hums to life with a soft jazz tune. And carved into the bottom rail of the table, just barely visible, are 5 small letters. F-A-M-I-L-Y. Where in the world are you watching from? We'd truly love to know. Feel free to share in the comments below. It's always heartwarming to see how far stories like this can travel. If this story touched your heart, and you'd like to hear more like it, stories of quiet courage, second chances, and unexpected kindness, consider subscribing to our channel. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for spending your precious time with us today. Until the next story, take care of yourself and remember, sometimes the softest hearts carry the strongest love.